Hello everyone. In this quick video, I want to show you a couple of new features and improvements that has been added to the Rhino.Inside.Revit project. In my Revit instance, I have a very typical Revit model open, and I want to show you this new button that you might have noticed that's been added to Rhino.Inside.Revit on the Rhinoceros panel that previews the geometry that is open in the Rhino sort of like instance inside the Revit viewport. So for this example, if I open my Rhino, I can see that I have added and I have opened a file in Rhinoceros that is sort of like the structure for that architecture model that I have here. This is a geometry that's completely created or generated in Rhino, or it could have been a geometry that they have generated in Grasshopper. Maybe it's a custom curtain wall and whatnot, but for whatever reason, you want to preview that inside your project to be able to coordinate against it, maybe make sure that it sits in the right place and whatnot before actually fully importing and converting that geometry. So you can simply turn the preview on, and as you noticed, the geometry is previewed in gray inside your 3D viewports. And you can move around it, you can zoom in and out and sort of like figure out if it sits in the right place and if the rest of your model is coordinated with that geometry. So that's the first feature. If you open Grasshopper, you might have noticed that the Grasshopper document components are now document aware. So if I open the Revit tab and I open the document, pretty much all these components here can now accept documents other than the active document. So the active document component always returns the document that's active. In this case, that's the name of the document. These document aware components have a label at the bottom that they show you which document they're working on if no other document is being passed to them. So it basically shows you which active document it's working on. So if I grab the document elements, let's say, and I grab my walls category and the category filter and I pass it to this, the component shows me that it's collecting the elements from that document, which is the active document. That's their default mode. But if you zoom in, you can add a new parameter to these components. It's called document. You can remove it very easily. You can add it again. And this is the document input parameter. So I can pass in, let's say, the active document to it. And as you notice, there's no other labels anymore because it's taking its input from the documents. And in this case, I'm just going to route the output to a preview panel so we can see that it's collecting all the walls. Now, instead of an active document, maybe you want to be able to work with all the documents, open documents. So I'm going to grab all the projects that are open to this. And as you might notice, you probably see that you're going to end up having multiple branches, and each branch belongs to any of the a document that's open. You can do the same thing with the families, and I can even use the document links to sort of like pass a document to it and grab its linked models and then pass it to the documents and start working with collecting elements and other data that I'm looking for inside the linked documents. So these components inside the document panel are pretty powerful, and they can work with multiple different documents now. The other two improvements that's been added is that you might have noticed that on the wiki for this project, we have had a lot of Python components under the walls and kernel walls. We actually have a lot more spread out under different sections. Initially, we started doing this so we can test out the ideas for these components, get them into your hands, try to sort of like incorporate this into your workflows, see if it works or not, see if people like it, and then start converting those into native components in Grasshopper on Revit. So that process has started. We have converted all the components that we had on the walls and curtain walls on the curtain walls into the native components. When you go on these pages, you don't see those download buttons anymore because those components are already included with the installation that comes with Grasshopper. So I'm going to show you an example of that. I'm going to go grab a graphical element, select a couple of, maybe let's select the wall here. And then I'm going to, inside Revit, I'm going to under the Analyze, and I'm going to say Analyze Wall. And I can pass that wall here, and I have all sorts of information related to that wall that I can analyze. This is a couple of components related to the basic walls, and then we also have components related to the current walls. So in this model, I have a very simple, a couple of different sort of like current walls created so we can test these. In this case, I'm going to grab the first one. Grabbing these current walls is always tricky because you have to get the edge, so you can grab the current wall instance, not its sub-elements. I'm going to go to Analyze, Analyze Current Wall, and this analyzes the current wall. It'll pass the current grid and the host wall if the current wall is embedded in a host wall. All of this is documented inside the wiki, and I'm going to analyze the current grid that's been sort of like output by this component. And I'm going to actually turn off the previews for all these components. And then I'm going to use the element geometry component to grab the geometry from all the current grid booleans. And I'm going to turn on all the names so it's a little bit more clear. So the current grid booleans, I'm getting those as elements, passing them to the geometry so I can extract the geometry. And I'm going to Rhino now. I'm going to clean up this model. Okay. One of the things that you can always do also is you can grab the perspective out and you can close Rhino. So you don't have to deal with the rest of Rhino, and you can always keep that preview in here. That is super handy and it stays on top of Revit. So in this case, I've grabbed the geometry for all those mullions from that current wall, or I can switch it to maybe the geometry that comes from the panels. And there's a list of other data that you can see that could be analyzed and extracted from those current walls. There's a whole bunch of components that are related to the current walls, a whole lot of them related to the walls and basic walls and stacked walls and stuff. You can get the structure of the basic walls and the geometry for those. And basically, these are the components that have been added. We'll continue converting the rest of the Python components into that. Related to the document components, we have added a new section to the guide that talks about the document components, the ones that I showed you, that you can zoom in and add the document property to them. So make sure to check it out, and I hope you like and enjoy the improvements.